Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, March 26th, 2020. So today I saw a headline about Bernie Sanders asking for another debate against Vice President Biden, and I thought that it was interesting that the Democratic primary race is still being discussed in the national news media, not because I think it's over, but because of the fact that the coronavirus has been dominating the headlines, and I really didn't think I would see anything related to the Democratic primary, considering that the closest primary election is April 4th, and even then, it's likely to be pushed out. Other than that, taking a look at our overall primary map, I've decided to go through the 538 predictions and just discuss each individual state and where it would be allocated in the future. Essentially, 538 has predicted that Vice President Biden will carry every single remaining state, so you should expect to see a lot of green on this map, just a starting point. But I want to see how much of a margin 538 expects Joe Biden to have over Bernie Sanders. I can almost guarantee it is narrower in some states and larger in others, likely because of the Sanders coalition left over from 2016 that has continued on to the 2020 election, but may not be as strong as we've previously seen. And just taking a look at this map, you will see a lot of green. So if you are a Bernie Sanders supporter or you don't necessarily like Vice President Biden, this is not my prediction. This is purely the numbers based off of 538's analysis of the overall Democratic primary as it stands. I will not be dabbling into the superdelegates yet, but I will have a general discussion at the end of this video. So I'm going to be doing these in sequential order, starting off with the state of Hawaii and finishing off in Kentucky. The interesting thing about Kentucky and Louisiana, as of right now, they violate the DNC rules that all primaries must be completed by, I believe, the 6th, sometime around then. However, the DNC is looking more likely to change those rules. A lot of states, including my home state of Maryland, have pushed from April over until June, so it should be pretty interesting seeing those states later on, which is the exact reason why Bernie Sanders wants a debate, mainly because he thinks that this is his time to gain ground. I think that without the coronavirus situation and elections not being pushed back, Biden would be already declared the presumptive nominee more so than he is already, because we would have Ohio and Georgia and just lead into a number of other primaries that won't necessarily end up being good news for Bernie Sanders regardless. But let's just take a look at what 538 says about the Democratic race and just look at the overall numbers. So we're starting off in the state of Hawaii. This is actually a pretty strong Bernie Sanders state from 2016. I'm surprised looking at these numbers. It predicts an exact tie between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. I believe they're both at 11 delegates projected in the state of Hawaii. Honestly, I think that Bernie Sanders might edge him out there, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's not going to make much of a difference. Wisconsin, they do expect a Biden victory with 48 delegates, and then, of course, Sanders getting the rest. And then if you go ahead and take a look at Puerto Rico, I think they might actually be adding in super delegates because these numbers aren't exactly adding up. So we'll go ahead and just go with what they said. Actually, no, they are adding up. That's just weird. Maybe Wisconsin was a little bit off. For the state of New York, they are expecting Michael Bloomberg to still get a pretty significant portion of delegates. Surprisingly, a total of 32 delegates compared to Bernie Sanders getting a total of, this is projected obviously, 91 delegates, and then Joe Biden getting the rest. It says that Joe Biden should get 151 delegates, so I'm actually going to go ahead and just check real quick. That does not necessarily make sense. That Bloomberg would be getting this large portion of delegates, unless for some reason that 538 would count in super delegates, but I honestly don't think that they would. I wrote all these numbers down prior to recording this video. That way I wouldn't be going back and forth because that just wouldn't necessarily make sense. Let me go ahead and hit New York. So yeah, so 274 possible pledged delegates. That's not what this map is showing. Maybe that's a little bit weird. So we're going to go ahead and take Bloomberg out of this scenario. I don't know why they even included Bloomberg. Maybe those numbers were outdated. Actually, okay, so let's go ahead and see. It says that, according to this, it's going to be an overall 61 for Bernie Sanders, and then that's weird. This is actually really weird. I don't know why they messed up the numbers, but I guess this is the overall average for 538. They're counting in. So they say there's 274 pledged delegates. I honestly don't know why they messed it up, per se, but let's just go ahead and roll with it. So let's continue on to the state of Ohio. It says that Biden will get 91 delegates and that Bernie Sanders will get the remaining 45. Maybe the state of New York was just a little bit off, but that's around the same percentages that it expects. Sanders to get. Interesting thing about New York, though, Bernie Sanders said he was not going to drop out until the New York primary. So just wanted to mention that. I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't expect that, to be completely honest. As for the state of Kansas, I think it's Biden. It says Biden 25, Sanders 14. So it's probably going to be 22 Biden, 11 Sanders at that situation. I don't know why some of these are right and some of these are wrong. It says that Biden's supposed to win 4 delegates. Sanders wins 2 in the state, not the state. In Guam, in Nebraska, it says 18 to 11. So it's roughly around. I honestly do not know why it's so messed up. But overall, honestly, I'm surprised Bloomberg even got a delegate portion from the state of New York. I didn't know that they didn't remove names off ballots with the primary most likely being pushed back. That wouldn't necessarily make sense that they didn't do that. But at the end of the day, even if Bloomberg does get delegates, you have to remember that he did endorse Vice President Biden, and he is most likely going to allocate those delegates right at the convention. And that's just how it normally goes. So it says Nebraska has 29 pledged delegates. Maybe it's just the map. Honestly, not so sure. Going over to West Virginia, this is an area that Bernie Sanders might be doing a little bit better in. Says he gets 10 delegates, but Biden is still the victor regardless. As for Georgia, it looks like Biden's going to get a pretty substantial victory here with a total of 77 delegates. Sanders getting the rest, so it looks like we're going to see a similar margin to what we see in the South. Over in Oregon, not necessarily the biggest state, but Bernie Sanders is expected to get a total of, I think, roughly around this margin. It's a narrow victory for Joe Biden. I'm adjusting based off the 538, so the percentages are around the same, but the numbers are still going to stay. I think they are including superdelegates, surprisingly, for whatever reason. If any of you guys know as to why the delegates might be off for states like Pennsylvania and New York, but they're right for some of the others, please let me know down in the comments, because I'm not going to continue just, I guess, using that without knowing ahead of time. But Sanders gets the rest. Oops, it should be around something around this. More so 60 something. That puts Biden already very, very close to the outright clinching of the nomination, and we're not even halfway done with the remaining states. For New Jersey, it does say that Joe Biden's going to get a pretty substantial portion of the delegate number here. Just taking a look at this overall map, not looking good for Bernie Sanders. I mean, he doesn't have a single victory projected by 538, and that could just be the fact that maybe they're wrong, because I honestly don't think that Bernie Sanders is completely supposed to be counted out yet. We're talking about a number of races that he did phenomenal in 2016, but then again, in the races he did phenomenal in, such as Washington or Idaho, he did not necessarily win this time around. So it is possible, very possible, that this ends up being somewhat correct in terms of what they expect Bernie Sanders to get. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and continue filling this in, because it says Pete Buttigieg actually gets 10 delegates in the state of Indiana. I think that's interesting that he still even gets a delegate portion. Maybe that's just early votes or people that honestly just really like him. But at the end of the day, still going to Joe Biden. Connecticut, this is honestly, if you take a look at the expected delegates, not projected delegates, delegates allocated to each individual state, it's interesting taking a look at which states are weighted more. If you don't know how the system works, it takes the number of House districts, and then it also adds on the percentage that the state voted for the Democratic nominee in the previous election. So let's say, for example, Maryland. Arizona has 67 delegates, but the state of Maryland has a total of 79. Maryland has a smaller population and smaller number of congressional districts, but had a very, very, very substantial portion of its electorate vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So therefore, it has more delegates because of the much larger percentage shared for the Democratic nominee in the previous election. And that's pretty much how they do the system. They've done that for practically ever. I do think that it might necessarily be not the best way to go ahead and do that. They definitely could have a different system that could enfranchise other areas rather than just do it based off previous 2016 or 2020, whatever, the previous election support. I honestly don't think that's necessarily the best way to gauge Democratic delegate worth, because states with smaller populations definitely should not be weighted more. I don't necessarily agree that my state should be weighted more than Arizona, despite voting for overwhelmingly for Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. But that's obviously not up to me. It's up to the DNC. But the interesting thing about superdelegates, though, if this does end up being a contested convention, which it will not be because Biden has surpassed the number needed, but if it does, superdelegates do not get to vote in the first ballot. So there will have to be a second ballot, but we all pretty much know how that is going to end up going, just based off of history and everything, to be completely honest. So Sanders, I actually expected to do a little bit better in the state of Montana than he's projected to do. We're talking about states that overwhelmingly went to him back in 2016 that we're not seeing him do too well in, to be completely honest. And it's kind of disheartening just taking a look at that campaign in general, and seeing exactly what has, not necessarily disheartening, but it definitely doesn't necessarily prove that persistence always follows through. We're talking about a candidate that has definitely fought for a lot of Democratic ideals in his entire life. It doesn't necessarily seem to be reflecting. I am not personally taking sides in the Democratic primary other than my own personal beliefs, but that's completely separate from my channel. But I do think that it is interesting that someone who, marched for civil rights wasn't exactly getting a large portion of the African American vote. I said the same thing in 2016. It's likely because of the Obama coalition, the same people that rallied behind Barack Obama in his primary election, but it's just how the vote ends up laying. The South is generally the centrist type area compared to the remainder of the state. So Louisiana actually was going to vote before Kentucky. I accidentally did Kentucky before the state of Louisiana, but it looks like they're expecting huge margins for Joe Biden in Louisiana. And Wyoming, I'm not sure why I didn't characterize Wyoming. That was one of the earliest ones to characterize, but it was 7-6. And that's pretty much it. So it looks like Bernie Sanders may have actually only carried a total of 6 states, a total of 7-8 contests, but I don't think that's going to be actual numbers. I definitely think that Bernie Sanders is going to carry a lot more delegates than projected here. I do think that he is going to have a little bit of a comeback, not to a point where he's actually within the area where he could overcome Joe Biden, but possibly come to a contested convention and bring Joe Biden down past what he's expected to get, 2,110 delegates to 1,361 delegates. I mean, that's an astonishing lead for Vice President Biden if it ends up being true. And then, like I said I would discuss the superdelegates, so we all know how they're generally going to go. We're probably going to see at least 60% go for Vice President Biden. And if that happens, I mean, Biden's lead starts to become greater than 1,000 over Bernie Sanders. But superdelegates don't get to vote in the first ballot, so I'm not going to characterize them in this map. This is the 538 prediction for overall delegate numbers continuing the Democratic primary. This is why a lot of people say that the race is over. The final projected numbers are very similar to this because 538 does have a little bit different delegate numbers, so I've compensated for that. But still an outright Joe Biden victory with well over the amount needed. And honestly, if this does actually happen, Bernie Sanders will probably have dropped out way earlier than reaching the convention if this was the actual outcome of the map. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.